Adventure Ho Illumineers, and welcome back to another episode of the DuckTale Dads podcast. I am one of your hosts, Mack, again with Nathaniel and Ryan. The band is continued to come back around again with no ill children, ill parents. We're here together again talking Lorcana, this game we're obsessed with. Today we're going to jump a little bit into Whispers Set Champ season, as well as, oh my gosh, DLC Richmond is like 3 days away. So we'll talk a little bit about what we predict's going to be there, trends that we've seen within the meta, and unfortunately none of us are going to be showing up. But hopefully that means that we'll be able to achieve another banner event for the DuckTale Dads in the near future, because once these tournaments start creeping up and we start inching towards them a little bit more, it just gets more exciting, and it kind of brings back those memories of what we experienced in Milwaukee. So excited to talk about that. But first, what's new in your world? Let's start with our favorite segment. Ryan, how about you first? What is new in your world?
New in my world, we actually got to go out to our first date night, my wife and I. We paid a babysitter, and we went and saw Zootopia 2, which is a wonderful movie. We both loved it. It was laughter, it was great music, it was just everything you would want in a movie. We crushed a large popcorn together. It was awesome. A great way to spend an evening. Paying for a babysitter to get out of the house and spend some quality time together, doing something that we did pretty frequently, I would say, pre-kids. And now post-kids, it's been very, very hit or miss on whether or not we get to it. I think this is the second one we may have gone to in the last 3 or 4 years. Maybe even longer than that, actually. So we'll see how much we get to in 2026. Seems to be a pretty stacked lineup of movies coming out in 2026, if anybody is a movie buff that's listening in. So that should be fun. That should be a good time. On the Lorcana front, there was a set championships that worked out perfectly timing-wise for me that I drove to the store and made it to. I knew going into it was pretty low likelihood that it was going to actually fire, because this store has tried to have a league night in the past and it just didn't really work out for that store. So I was a little bit hopeful when I saw it pop up as a set champs that maybe they were just going to try the they had enough people coming through to buy Lorcana product that maybe they thought they could fire a set championship. So I figured I'd support them since I buy a decent amount of product from them. So I showed up to the store. Unfortunately, that did not fire, so that was too bad. And the staff there was nice enough to talk to me about it and talk me through it. And so they were a little bit surprised, a little bit of a miscommunication among their staff members, where the person that was actually working that day was not aware that there was going to be potentially an event that day. So they sorted all that out and they got it all figured out. But there was still just not enough people there to fire anyways. I was the only one in store, and there was only, I think, 3 other people registered online. So that wouldn't have been able to fire even if everybody had showed up. So unfortunate, but so it goes. Like I said, the timing worked out perfectly, and we had already planned it in our schedule, so didn't really mind the time in the car that I spent. And I bought a few packs and brought them home just to play with my wife once I got there. But looking forward to the next couple of weekends of set championships. I have a couple of events on the schedule already, so that should be a good time. It'll be an especially good time when hopefully our entire group of 5, the whole 5 of us, will go to the same set championships for the first time ever, knock on wood, barring any illnesses that may pop up in the next 2 weeks. We have a lot of time between now and then, so let's keep ourselves healthy and slather on the hand sanitizer wherever we go, fellas. But that's what's new in my world. Nathaniel, what's new in yours?
So on the Lorcana front, I did get to attend my first set champs since set 8, which was super fun. Happy to share plenty of that as we kind of get into the recap there. But just say this, that it was a great experience. It was fun to be back in the room with that, in that environment at a local level. On a personal life note, we are prepping for my oldest son's birthday. He has requested that it be a Minnesota Vikings theme. So as a dad, couldn't be more proud. And so app shirt for the occasion tonight as we're recording. But we are preparing with some fun games to do, and as we host his Vikings theme party with some of his buddies later in the week. So super excited for that. It's fun having those kind of seeing your kiddos sort of show their own personality, their own interests, and how that kind of reflects sometimes some of the things that you love. Speaking of which, Ryan, a great point on like the getting out and about with your spouse. It took us a long time as well. My wife and I were still, I think, actively working. Like, how do you regularly get out? How, like, in what ways are you super intentional? So for listeners out there, would love to hear like your strategies, how you plan out. Like, hey, what does it look like to like have that regular cadence, right? Because it's really easy to get caught up in like the not the minutia, but just like the grind, right, of kind of everyday stuff, and before you know it, right, you're kind of filling up your schedule outside of the normal commitments that you have. And I think it can be hard to get out with your spouse as much as we probably would like. So yeah, glad that you guys did, and Zootopia 2 is a great way to spend it. I hope to watch that pretty soon as well myself. We actually went out and saw the Wicked movie most recently on our sort of like parents' night to go watch a movie, and what a banger. So yeah, I'll pass it to Mac.
I will put my hand in the ring for yes, Zootopia is great. I've seen it. That was the movie that my wife and I saw on opening night, because that was the night before Thanksgiving, where we shipped our kids off to my parents' house because we had to do Thanksgiving prep the next morning, and we didn't want kids bothering us during that food prep. But during that time, we utilized going out and to a movie, and it was a lot of fun. That's definitely one of the preferred dates that we like to do too. We actually, what's new in my world, we actually watched Avatar 2 to prep for Avatar 3, because that's the next movie on our list to go see within the next week or two. That's all those Avatar movies get a lot of hype for sure. And I'm very much excited to go see that one, but just couldn't remember how the second one went. So we watched that over the course of the last couple of days, because turns out when your parents and kids go down, you're exhausted, and a 3-hour and 15-minute movie is hard to watch in one sitting. So we did have to split it up in 2 nights, as sad as that sounds, but we got through it and very much enjoyed it. Other what's new in my world, we made a trip to some family members in Wisconsin to celebrate our holiday season with them. Had a very successful trip. That was a lot of fun. And then my oldest also had a birthday. His birthday is in a few days, actually, but his friend birthday party was this past weekend, and we went to a trampoline park with his friends, and they had an absolute blast. Our passes lasted the entire day, but his party was like an hour and a half, and so most of the kids stayed for an hour and a half, and then maybe stayed for like an additional 30 minutes or whatever, right? Since our passes were all day, our kids stayed for an entire 5 hours. They were jumping on trampolines for 5 hours. My wife and I definitely felt it the next morning, as we're now in our 30s, and we don't recover as quickly as we once did. But it was a lot of fun. They had a blast, and that's all you can really hope for as a parent. Also, though, when the kids did go down earlier because they were exhausted, I've been able to play online a lot more and try and practice the deck that I am hoping to do come set champ season, hopefully in a week or two. And I am finding some success. It feels good to actually play a deck I feel comfortable with. I think kind of in the heels of DLC Milwaukee, I started to realize how much of an Emerald player I am not. So Emerald Sapphire was the deck I ran at Milwaukee, as I've alluded to before, and I just am not that style player. That the tempo killer that Emerald tends to be, that's not what I want to do. So it's nice playing a deck that I feel like I'm getting the handle of more than the Milwaukee side of things. So it's going to be fun. I'm excited for set champs. Not making it this weekend. Again, another birthday celebration, but hope in 2 weeks from now, that's the plan, is to have the first one. It was crazy. I was thinking about it. The first one since set 7. That's how long it's been for me to make it to a set champ. So I'm very much looking forward to it. A lot of it for me has been just online testing for the last 4 months. So that's new in my world. But speaking of set champs, it's been the first weekend. But Ryan, I think you had something else to add before we get into that.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on one of your statements there, Mac. Tempo killer, I don't know that... I definitely agree that I don't think Emerald is your color. It doesn't suit you. Green's not really your color, I would guess, in general. But I think tempo killing is what you like the most in your decks, I would argue. Nothing beats some of playing a Be Prepared to really kill some tempo for your opponents. Just want to throw that out there as a little caveat that maybe it's not necessarily a tempo killing, but I just think green might not match your complexion.
That's a fair point. A tempo killer, board wipe, I get that aspect for sure with Ruby. I guess what I'm referencing with Emerald is like the just mean, just the meanie color, I guess. Like it's just no one likes to play against it, and you feel dirty when you play as it, is the big experience that I have when I've played Emerald or play against Emerald. So that's the way I think about Emerald for sure. But to your point, it is crazy, and Emerald tends to be a big color within set champs too. I think with Emerald Amethyst is something we talked about, and Emerald Sapphire. But Nathaniel, I wanted to get into your set champs. How was your experience? Because Ryan and I were trying to live vicariously through you with your first weekend here.
Yeah, so first off, was really awesome to be able to make it on an opening weekend for set champs. I think that's usually when there's a lot of buzz. A lot of the most competitive players, I think, are usually hitting that, especially relevant right now because we are on the eve of a DLC, right? So a lot of people are prepping for that. So the thing that was super interesting about my weekend was I actually, I was trying to go to a set champs in Minneapolis, and I think we had about 14 or 15 people there. So I kind of figured in the back of my head, okay, it'll be tough, right? Because you're going to have to go 4 rounds, be at least 3-1 or better to get into a top 4 cut, to make the top cut. But a top 8 would be, that should be achievable. That's the goal, right? Usually our goal is you just try to get top 8. And I have felt very fortunate that I have done the top 8 thing for 10 consecutive set champs that I have attended. That felt really cool. And I was hoping to continue that trend. Now, unfortunately, that store had a family emergency. They were closed. Not even just like no set champs, like the whole store was just closed down. Now, fortunately, an hour later, there was another event firing, and that had already had a fair amount of people registered for it. I think at the time it was like 18 or 19. Or, I don't know. There were plenty of people there. And so the people that were at the location I went to basically had a choice to make at that, in the next 20 minutes, I can decide to head to this other one, or I can just, we could just play for fun or whatever. And I was like, I got the time, I'm going to go play. And so I drove to their shop, and about, I think, 6 or 7 of us did this. And so that store ended up having 22 people. And Ryan calls this DLC Fridley. It was at a store in Fridley, Minnesota called Viral Card Games. And it was, there were a lot of really strong players there. And I knew that I would definitely be tested if I wanted to continue my streak. I'll spoil the news. I did not get top 8, sadly. I ended up going 3-2, and I didn't like bubble out into 9th because that's like the true bubble out number, right? I was technically 11th, but there were 4 of us that were 3-2, and the tiebreaker, there was only one that had a good enough breaker. The best tie-breaking 3-2 of the 4 of us was the 8th seed. So sadly, that streak is now over. So, fresh slate, no pressure at the next one now. But the thing that was, I think, really cool at this, and this is in conjunction, I think, with some of what we've been talking about with the introduction of new and better cards since Fabled. We've focused a lot on the fact that many of those have been purple cards, but post Hiram ban, if you kind of remember back in the days of Jafar, the days of, we're still in Infinity format, and there's lots of good decks, right? They're like super diverse, right? We were seeing lots of different colors or color combinations, winning events, winning set champs, doing well, making top 8s, all that fun stuff. And that was definitely what I observed. So I think we've been following, right, like somehow like the big events have gone, and it's like 30% purple steel, a lot of blue-green, and like still like a pretty good chunk of like blurple in that mix. Shockingly, 2 things happened at the set champs. 1, I ran blurple. So a purple steel stand no more, one might say. No, just kidding. We're definitely still on the purple steel train. But I ran Ryan's beloved blurple. We workshopped it a ton in the weeks leading up to set champs. I felt like what I was going to try to do is really target other purple decks, specifically purple steel, and then also if we saw any ruby amethyst, I felt like it would be a pretty good matchup for me as what one might say the bigger purple deck, right? So naturally, in the first 2 rounds, I ran into purple-green, everyone's favorite tempo-killing and kind of blue feasting color, green, and did not have the best time there. But I ultimately did finish with a positive record and was close to sniffing my way into the top 8. But again, I think of the 22 decks that were present, there was not a single color combination represented with more than 3 players. So if you think about how crazy that is, right? Because we're seeing 50% of the meta share from a lot of these bigger events be just purple steel and blue green, I think, at the top. If I'm not mistaken, guys, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. But there was, I think, only a single purple steel there and only a couple blue greens. There was blue steel, there was purple yellow, there was ruby amethyst was in there, there was dogs, so emerald, amber. It was just incredible how many different colors were present and how many other colors did well too. So the top 8 was actually 7 different color combinations. The only thing that was represented twice was emerald, amethyst. There were 2 in the top 8. Otherwise, they were all unique, one of each color combination. So, and it wasn't all just purple, right? Like there was blue green in the top, there was a dogs in the top, right? So like there was just lots of different stuff. And I think as far as like what we've really hoped for in a post-rotation world is that there would be lots of diversity, different types of stuff. You wouldn't be stuck playing mirrors a bunch, and I think maybe that's part of what it was, right? Maybe people don't like purple steel mirrors or they don't like blurple mirrors, and that's why people decided not to run at this particular event. But I just got to say that the amount of diversity was just incredible. And it made for, I think, a pretty fun event and just lots of different types of games. I mean, that was definitely prevalent for me. As I played 2 purple-green players, I played a blue steel, I played an amber steel, and I played a amber amethyst combination. So, I got to see a lot of different stuff, which I think is also different than my DLC experience, right? Where I saw 4 of my 7 matchups were purple steel mirrors. So that was really cool. It felt weird to be away from purple steel for sure. But it was cool to test like what I could do with a different deck that is trying to do some pretty different stuff. And I got to thank Ryan for sure for workshopping everything with me. I did take his advice the morning of, as I was sleeving up everything and kind of packing up. I added, and Moyen would love this, my 61st card. And it was Sing Together. What is the draw 5? I'm blanking.
Second star
to the right, and there was a game, and I was playing Christian, and I sang it, and he just said, "Yeah, that's good. We can go to the next game." And it was just like, it was just funny. Like he was just like, "Yeah, that's ridiculous." And it just, just those funny moments where it's just like, it's sometimes the card is just an absolute dead card in your hand, but when you get to do the thing, it's fun. So, yeah, I think for that, it was cool. It was cool to try Blurple. I see why Ryan likes it. Draws lots of cards. You get to do a lot of cool stuff. And Blue Hades is super OP. So he saved me more than once. But yeah, it was just so fun to kind of be back there. I think one of the things, and we'll kind of get into this as we talk about like DLC prep, that I kind of didn't remember, so shame on me, is the length that these events can go. You really have to be prepared to just like take care of yourself, right? I brought 1 water bottle and I had like a single granola bar, and breakfast for me was like oatmeal. So I like get there and it's like I have no calories. I have hardly any water. So naturally, like mid-afternoon, I have like a headache and I'm like, oh, I'm like getting kind of foggy, and it's like, hey, I wonder why. And yeah, it just, I saw someone there he was eating an avocado, and it was like, that's brain food. Like that's smart. So it's like, it's important to remember, right, that like the length of these events, particularly a DLC event, right, but like even a set champs with 22 people, you are going to be there for at least, if you play through just Swiss, 5 hours. So it's like, that's a pretty lengthy amount of time if you have no food and a very minimal amount of like water drink. And I will say it was also just me not paying attention, because like Viral has a place to get drinks. So like I could have easily done that. Like in the store, they have a refrigerator with drinks you can buy. So I just, I was locked in. I was golden retrievering. I was talking to the people in our community. I was loving it. And just so full of just really, really strong players. We've referenced Ernie, Garrett, Christian on this podcast, Vo before they were all there. And I knew when I walked in, like, this is going to be a buzzsaw. And it was. It was really a strong field and great practice for a DLC coming up so soon. So I do think I kind of asked a couple people, like, did you feel like this was pretty good prep? And they were like, absolutely. Like, played really strong players pretty much all day. Like, that's really good. So, and I think that's what you usually will see on an opening weekend with set champs. It's not something I've always been able to even get out for just because of the schedule. But yeah, because everything had kind of congregated from 2 set champ locations into one, it made for a very, very, very competitive field.
I really like the fact that you got to do 5 rounds of Swiss. Like, I feel like that, at least to me, really makes a difference in the sense of, like, I have a chance to... I mean, I think it's kind of unrealistic to expect to go perfect. And I feel like 4 rounds of Swiss, you, like, almost have to feel like you do that. Whereas in 5 rounds of Swiss, there are a lot of good players, to your point. And maybe you make a mistake, but good players make good plays, you know? So, like, you can't expect to go perfect against that strong of a field. But you still at least have a chance to make a top 8, right? So I like that aspect, and happy for you that you were able to do the 5 rounds of Swiss and get, like, the full set champs experience. That was really nice. To your point about this specific location, I know, at least I'm kind of just spitballing here, but for sure for like the last 3 or 4 sets, this store tends to do the first weekend, every set champs, and it's the Saturday. They want to be the first one, and they want people to show up. And usually, maybe it only gets 15 players, and sometimes I've seen as much as 25. But it's a very strong field for the most part. I know when we have talked to Hannah and Christian before, they go to this store almost every single time, and like our world champ representative goes to this store too. He didn't make it this weekend, but he has in the past, Scott Markinson. So like it brings in a really strong field. So I don't know. I know that brings out our competitive nature, and sad I missed it. And I like those strong fields, especially when you get past that 16-player threshold. But I just wanted to make the comment that it was super interesting that the top 8 wasn't what we expected either. And maybe that's a part of like the prep, right, for these players that might be attending the DLC. I have no idea who's going from our community to DLC Richmond. But for those who participated in Set Champs Weekend, that's probably another reason, to your point before, why like it was so competitive, to get that last bit of extra practice before they fly out and go. And maybe they're trying different decks that they might feel like could show up, and they just want to be prepared for when they do show up for DLC. But yeah, I'm glad that the state of the game, or at least for the first weekend, we don't have all the data points, but for the first weekend, that why the meta is starting to expand like we have wanted it to. And it's not just Blurple and Purple Steel that we've seen, at least for the better part of like the last 4 months. We'll see how that changes for Richmond, but I'm glad at least at a local level we're seeing different flavors of the month, so to speak. So happy for you, and excited to see when I'm able to attend Set Champs in a couple weeks for sure.
Yeah. I also, props to Viral for running a good event. It was pretty smooth. I also really like when we're at these stores and there's a very large, easy to view timer. They had like a huge screen with like 2 giant clocks on it. One for, I think there was like a Riftbound event happening, and then, one big timer for the Lorcana event. And it was just, it's nice, right? Especially when you're playing blue, to kind of just peek over at that every once in a while and be like, how are we doing? I did not go to time at all. So I was able to play fast enough. But yeah, I mean, it was surprising to see it divert as much as it did from what we've seen from the big events. So I'll just say that maybe we're in for some pretty cool diversity come the DLC, but we'll definitely find out in just a few days here.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I mean, we've already seen the Zansayeds, right, bringing out the Amber Amethyst, and he apparently killed it in his first set champs this weekend too. I saw a post that he won one with that exact same deck. So we're seeing a lot. We're starting to see a lot of variety, and that just makes the game healthy and more exciting as we continue to play it. And I think it'll only get better as I said 11 is just around the corner once we pass this set champ season 2.
Yeah, Mac, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there was a card actually that Zan sort of, I think, popularized or helped popularize with that Amber Amethyst deck of his, and I played a different Amber Amethyst list over the weekend, and man, that card, Horseman Strikes Again, or the Horseman Strikes, it's the Amber 3-cost action. You can just banish a chosen evasive character, and you draw a card. So it's like the perfect singular answer for a genie. Like, the genie gets played, they draw a card, and then they play Horseman Strikes, draw a card. So it's just like it never happened, right? You're both even on cards. But it's really good if you play like a Dumbo and you don't get to do the Dumbo things yet, or you play a Yago or something. It's man, they're really up on the value of that trade. And so that card actually, it's funny too, because somebody observed this while we were playing. They were like, wait a second, Amber is the removal color now? Isn't that the heal and quest and not really ever do a whole lot of removal color? And it's here they are doing that. Meanwhile, Ruby has a 2-cost, bird that quests for 2. It's funny, right? We've sort of shifted a little bit of that, and that was one of our predictions that might happen, is some of the color identities might shift and kind of ebb and flow a little bit from what they used to be. That's been really interesting, and that card low key is really good. You gotta watch out for that, and sometimes I think you just gotta draw it out and maybe think that hey, a genie exchange isn't that bad for me, because at least we're even on cards. It definitely made me change my play lines, because, man, he played a lot of those in the 2 games we played. He played 5 or 6 of them. So it was just any time an evasive came out, bang, done. So it was cool. Cool to see other types of cards that I'm just not super used to. And also shout out to Christian. I know that he is making it. I can talk about this because he has an actual channel of this deck list that he's doing as a challenge, where he's only using sealed product that he opens during set 10 to build a deck, and it's a blue steel kind of detective Z thing. And I was able to beat him in the first time we've ever played in a competitive event against one another. And I will note the caveat that I'm using a constructed deck that I have no restrictions, and he has this sealed only deck. So the fact that he, we were in 3 games, I think speaks a lot to how talented he is in a way, using kind of a nerfed deck. But it was fun. So I think that video is actually I think our match will probably be in his next video. So that'll be kind of fun to see, particularly when I bricked really hard in game 1. I felt this is the stuff that doesn't happen as a purple steel player, right? You have this brain smooth, just curve. Sometimes you miss a 2-drop or something. It's no big deal. But here I am at 6 ink with just a singular Hades in hand. I'm just draw an inkable. Card off the top, a second Hades. And it's awesome. Float 6 ink, don't do anything and pass. And it's it feels so bad. And it did kind of change the course of that game. But, so it goes, right? That's what can sometimes happen. And I'm sure I could have made a different decision to prevent that event from happening. But funny just because it was this doesn't happen in my usual deck. I just don't have this. So more learning, and again, just super fun to play, and cool to kind of be on the other side of the table from him. I also got to play his son. That was really fun too. So all in all, great time.
Welcome to the blue struggle. If you miss ramp, good luck trying to make it up for the rest of the game. Also, shout out Connor for successfully, or at least what we think is trending in that direction, where the identities are starting to change post-rotation. He called that out, so listen back to a previous episode a long time ago now, pre-rotation predictions. But with that, to your point, Nathaniel, this was a pretty stacked field in prep for DLC Richmond, and that is, I was looking at the countdown timer. It's less than 4 days away. Turns out that another major North American DLC is here upon us, which might make it good locally for those who are just staying and doing set champs. All the really strong players are probably flying out to Richmond, so maybe you'll have an opportunity to find some success on a set champs level. But we also wanted to talk about what we think, because we like these events. We like watching the streams and learning more and observing better players at the game and kind of applying that to our own gameplay. What we think is going to happen for DLC Richmond, and kind of lean upon our experience from Milwaukee and what things might be changing for this event when compared to the first one, kind of tips for those who are going, things we learned while we were there, and just talk a little bit about DLC Richmond. So I think first and foremost, what's new compared to what happened in Milwaukee? The first things first, the schedule is a little bit different. It's not just 2 days. Ryan, I would like you to dive into this a little bit on how the events and schedule, and let you take it away.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that DLC Richmond is having these changes implemented. Obviously a little bit bummed that we didn't have this level of side event offerings on Friday night for a Milwaukee event, but at the same time, really excited to see the trajectory that Pastimes events and Ravensburger is taking the DLC experience, at least in North America here. So there's a full day of side events on Friday, and they have a major side event every single day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And each of those major side events have significantly increased prize offerings. So with each of those side events, the major side events, they are offering per game, there are 1,200 tickets to be won or given out. So you get 1,000 for a win, 200 for a loss, and 600 prize tickets for a draw, each person. So you're just effectively splitting the tickets then. And then on top of the prize tickets you may win each round, they are also offering a certain level of promo prizes for each of the win totals. So the major event on Friday is a core constructed event. For 5 wins, you get a set of the non-foil promo cards, which includes Dragonfire, Let It Go, Mulan, Simba, Elsa, and Pegasus. Non-foil full set for 5 wins in the major side event on Friday. 6 wins get you the promo set plus the Mulan playmat, and 7 wins get you a play set of the promos and the Mulan playmat, which is significant on top of the tickets that you've won to get to that point. So you get 7,000 prize tickets plus the play set and the Mulan mat, which is incredible to me. That is a huge. That's a major. That's just incredible for the players to be able to have this opportunity to win this much prizing, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really pumped for everybody that gets to go to Richmond and gets to participate in these events, because it's going to be a blast. They have a similar prize structure on Saturday and Sunday. The Saturday main event is another core constructed event. They're calling it a mega prize, if you will. It's just a 5-round event as opposed to the 7-round event from Friday. But 5 rounds and 5 wins get you either the Mulan or the Simba playmat, your choice. 4 wins gets you a non-foil Simba promo card. 3 wins gets you an Ice Maker, the Elsa pin. 2 wins gets you the non-foil Let It Go. 1 win gets you the non-foil Pegasus, and just for participation, they're handing out the Dragonfires. So those are stacking prizes, right? So you get, just by signing up, you get the non-foil Dragonfire. You get 1 win, you get a Pegasus and the Dragonfire. 2 wins, you get the Let It Go, the Pegasus, and the Dragonfire, so they stack on each other, which is also, the prize haul, if you're not in the main event and you're just there as an attendee, is unbelievable for these side events. And then Sunday, they're doing another Infinity Extravaganza, with another very generous prize structure. Looks like they're doing the same type of ticket prize structure they did in Milwaukee for the Infinity event, because it was already previously announced. They're just kind of keeping it consistent from that perspective. But then the side events, the other side events that you can enter, they're offering 1,000 tickets per win in each of those rounds in the side events, and 400 tickets per loss. So they're just increasing the number of prize tickets effectively that they're giving out, it seems, that's awesome, because it was we experienced it was a grind to get the prize tickets we wanted, to get the things off of the prize wall that we wanted. Nonetheless, I feel very fortunate that we were all able to be successful in that endeavor. At the same time, it would be nice to be able. It would have been nice to have this opportunity to just do the side events rather than having to figure out a grinding option to do pack rush a ton or do core constructed pods a ton, but I really love the changes that they're making, and I'm really excited to hear about the experience that the players that are going to DLC Richmond are going to have once they come back and we're able to cross paths in the local community.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. To your point, I think the biggest thing that I would compare it to for DLC Milwaukee was like it almost felt with Milwaukee, if you didn't do well in either of the major events or you didn't take first place in a side event where you got a pretty exponential or good haul of tickets, it almost felt like pay to play or pay to win, where like you needed to pay a lot for like pack rush battles and whatnot in order to get the amount of tickets that you needed in order to get, in our case, a playmat, right? Which kind of felt bad. So thankfully, like we collectively did well to earn our tickets through the side events as well as the main event stage. Like we got enough tickets in that we earned them rather than having to dump a lot of our own personal finances to, in a way, purchase those tickets through Pack Rush, for example, to then use for the prize wall. So I'm really grateful that they're expanding the opportunity to gain tickets. Feels a little bad that we don't have the same opportunity to get cards on top of playmats for the first people who went to Milwaukee, because this is the biggest thing, right? It's like, I think this provides more of an opportunity for someone to get a playmat and cards. Whereas when we were at Milwaukee, it was pick your poison. You get either a couple cards or you get a playmat, and it's really hard to get both, right? So that's awesome. One clarification I want to ask for you, Ryan. So there's a main side event on Saturday, which is 5 rounds, in addition to the main DLC competition, which is the 2,000 player event. That's 10 rounds. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's a main side event, and then there's the main event that everybody signs up for with competitor badges. And I believe it's 8 rounds of Swiss on Saturday, 4 rounds of Swiss on Sunday, plus the top cut on Sunday as well. The same pattern that they had for Milwaukee, just because that's the event space that they have. And then the main side event on Saturday, the core constructed, is just a 5-round event. That's the prize, mega prize stacking prize structure.
It sure does make me want to go to another DLC. Hopefully Indy works right to get more of this prize support. But yeah, Nathaniel, I was not aware of the increases in prize support. So what are your initial reactions to something like this?
Man, when you were going through it, I was like, oh, he's starting at the top. Right? Like you started with the best thing, and then it got better and better and better. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this is so much better. Like they clearly heard the feedback and the fair criticism, I would say, of how it felt stingy the prizing was at DLC Milwaukee, where, to your point, Mac, you just had to grind so hard to get one big thing. Whether that was one of the 7,000 ticket cards that was a cool promo card, or an 18,000 ticket playmat, it felt like you were going to have to spend at least like $300 and just like grinding an entire day to get the playmat, for example. Which, like, sure, it's fine, right? Like, if that's your goal, and whatever. But I think that they've clearly allowed now a lot more, and just like getting tickets per win in like the major event, like that's huge, right? Because there wasn't a lot of incentive to stay in the main event when we went, right? Like it was like get your Mulan promo, and then if you're not gonna qualify for day 2, drop. And it's like, I think Ravensburger has been beating the drum for the most part for the better part of 2 years, saying we want people to play the game, right? Whether that be in top cuts, not just splitting, or whatever it is, like they want to incentivize playing the game. And that structure was very much not in alignment with that, where it's like, if like I am now it's actually worse for me because I could be getting tickets doing other side events than playing the game, where a win would get me effectively nothing other than like a little bit of pride. And you could say you placed better in the DLC in terms of the final standings, which sure. Right. So I think this is clearly like they absolutely buffed the heck out of them, and good on them. I definitely am a little bit envious of the people who are going to this, because yeah, I mean, you could come home with an absolute haul, like based on what we did, right? Like the number of things that we did while we were at DLC Milwaukee, and the performance Mac that you had in the Infinity event, right? Like we would have came home with a lot more stuff under this format that we're seeing here. So really cool. I hope that they carried over, and I hope that we were able to attend the next one which, like, again, it's going to be a different format, right? It's Infinity. And I'm actually really, really curious how this impacts the turning of the page after this upcoming weekend, what players are focusing on. Because then the next big event is Infinity, and people might really change what they're playing and focusing on. Like, do they just ignore or for a little while? Or do they still kind of play it casually? That will be really interesting for me to observe.
Piggybacking on Nathaniel's last point there, my local game store actually, I think, is hosting one of their league nights every week is going to be every month is going to be Infinity. I think that maybe the second weekend is going to be an Infinity weekend, and then the other 3 or 4 weekends of the month are going to be core constructed. So they're already trying to sprinkle it in and add to that flavor and support that as a structure, a tournament structure. And just to clarify as well, in the main event, the main event, I believe the prize structure is the same as it was for DLC Milwaukee. So I don't think there are tickets per win in that event this time around. I could be incorrect. I could be wrong. But I don't see anything posted online, at least, that says there's going to be tickets per win. There's still the prize tickets for making day 2. And we did see that retroactively for DLC Milwaukee and DLC Bologna that they offered, or they gave prize support to players that were finished at the same threshold as the bubble, basically. So if you bubbled out, you still got the prizes that everyone that bubbled in got as a result of making it into the bubble. So that was great, and they also listed that on the website, that equivalent match points will get you the same prize as top 32, top 64. So that's good to see. Great to see that. Love to see that, because I'm sure we've all had an experience now of bubbling out of any type of event, and that no matter how big the event is, whether it's 2,000 people or 8 people, it feels bad to bubble out of anything. Glad to see that they're making some really positive changes, and like I said, I'm really excited to see for the future of the DLCs. And honestly, I'm excited to tune in to some of the DLC Richmond stream just to observe and see what's happening in the larger meta in Richmond, since I will not be attending and will be here in Minnesota instead.
It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited for Richmond to see what new decks kind of take shape, knowing that hopefully the set champs that you experienced, Nathaniel, is a precursor to the expansion of what we're going to see in Richmond. We could just be seeing what we've been seeing a lot of the mid-tier events, kind of the domination of the 3 that continues to sweep this meta in a sense. Maybe 4. I'll give Dogs some love too in that, along with Amber, Steel, Blurple, as well as Sapphire, Emeralds. Those are kind of the top 4 again, but we're seeing a lot more flavor, which is great, and I hope to see a lot of that, especially represented in the Top Cut Day 2. Let's have a lot more love with those other fun decks and niche decks that we didn't see in Milwaukee. But with that, also for those of you who are attending Richmond, maybe for those of you also that are first timers, we wanted to share what we learned in our experience with Milwaukee, some tips and tricks, the pieces of advice that we learned along the way in our experience with our first DLC, to kind of pass that knowledge along, and hopefully so you can maximize the fun, so to speak, over the course of that weekend, rather than stressing about when I'm going to eat my next meal or do we have enough water, so to speak. But that's my first thing. I will step first. Make sure you bring a water bottle. Bring a water bottle. Stay hydrated. We thankfully, as competitive sports players throughout the duration of our lives, we understand that importance of staying hydrated, especially with long events and long tournaments. So that was one thing I think we all were very much aware of and wanted to make sure we brought in our to-go bag for that weekend, was bringing a water bottle. We lucked out. The event center in Milwaukee allowed water bottles. I don't remember if they made us even dump out waters before going in, but either way, there were plenty of drinking fountains along the way to refill your water bottle once you were in the event. I would imagine that all the event spaces that they are choosing for DLCs will have a similar floor plan, or similar layout, in the sense that there will be concessions and especially water hydration stations there while you're attending. So that's the biggest thing. Stay hydrated. You will have time in between rounds to refill water bottles. So you don't need to stress out about, oh, I'm running Sapphire specifically and all of my rounds are taking 58 minutes. Do I even have a chance to go to the bathroom and fill up my water bottle? Yes, you will. So bring a water bottle. That's my first tip, is staying hydrated. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. So the thing that I would have as my biggest piece of advice is just remember, you're playing a card game with Disney princesses. Like, just go to have fun. Yes, obviously compete at the highest level, but ultimately, like, everyone is there to have fun at the core of it all. So absolutely, number one, keep that in mind as you're going through the day. It'll make it such a better experience for you. There's so many great people that you can connect with and meet at this event, whether it's the big names you've seen all over the place, or it's just some random person you're sitting at a table with while you try to stuff your face with a sub sandwich and some chips as fast as you can between rounds. Make the connections, and just remember that everyone's there just to have fun, and do your best to maintain the fun aspect of it all, even while you're being in this hyper competitive setting. Because absolutely, by all means, go all out and win as many rounds as you can. Go 12-0 to get top in Swiss, and then go 5-0 to run the table through the top cut and get that golden Mickey and World's Invite and everything like that. But at the same time, make sure you're having fun, because that's going to make it such a better experience. And I was kind of in and out of the fun mentality during Milwaukee, to be quite honest. And the rounds that I was in the fun mentality were much more enjoyable, and the rounds that I was in the gamer mentality, or the nose of the grindstone, head down, just focus on what I'm doing, were much less enjoyable. So I would highly recommend that you maintain this like aspect of and the priority of having fun as you're at this major event. That is, it's a blast to see all the artwork on all the artwork hanging around the room, and all of the chatter and bustle of all the players in the room, and the opportunity to just hang out with your friends and play cards for a weekend is really, truly unmatched. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is just remind yourself to have fun throughout the whole process.
I think that's a really good point, Ryan, before I share mine, about just the fact that, like, remember that 64 people out of 2,000 are going to make the top cut. That's 3%. So for every 3 people that get to make it into that little elite group, 97 people get eliminated. You know, it's a big number of people not making it, right? So it's like, go in with the mentality that, like, it's going to be really hard to do that. Like, play your best. But, like, I think if you expect to make a top cut like that, it's going to feel worse if you don't. And it's more likely that you will not, no matter how good you are. We saw that with some of the best players in the world at some of the first DLCs this time around, right? Like, they were not making day 2 even, let alone the top cut. And that's okay, right? Like, I think that's, again, if you're focusing on having fun and you've prepped the way that you can, right? There's tons of other factors that could impact your record at the end of the day. One that I'll share, and this is going to seem a little bit silly, but it actually was pretty relevant for Milwaukee, is if you have some time, and you're going to have time at Richmond, if you can kind of just walk around the event center a little bit, just get an idea of the full layout, like, not just like where you come in, you go through security, and like how you get into like the main entrance of the event hall, but like some of the other like areas, it's really beneficial. They might have like little vending snack machines out in like random hallways, or, and this is the silly part, other bathrooms, right? Because in the event center in Milwaukee, there was like one kind of primary bathroom area on the one wall, and there were times like towards the end of rounds where like the line was absolutely crazy, where it's like, you know, this is not something you want to have to worry about, right? Like we said, you're trying to be prepared so you don't have to do these like other things or stress out about other stuff. If you knew of like a bathroom that's like out across the hall in some other nook and cranny, which I found out like day 2, and it was super nice. I would just go there. There was like one person ever or 0 in that bathroom. So I could just walk right in, walk right out. And it's like no big deal, right? Versus like standing in a line and like shuffling through because there's 200 guys trying to cram into this, you know, tiny space. So random thing, but try to get a sense for the layout, and maybe you do that on Thursday when you do your check-in. Maybe just kind of spend 10 minutes, just walk around, not the main area, but the area, sort of the peripheral area of the event center that you have access to, because you might find some stuff that could be beneficial for you later, whether it's a hidden drinking fountain or something.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we utilized that. We took advantage of that definitely in the night a little bit the night before, but definitely the morning of when we got there absurdly early and we didn't need to be there absurdly early. We took advantage of walking around and getting used to where everything was for sure. I'm going to go back to the I hinted at this first point is that rounds take longer than you think. So you will have time to get water, go to the bathroom, get a snack. Like time, it's not like your set champs level, right? Set champs, it's very much like 50 minutes. You hit the 50 minutes, you have 5 turns, and then the tournament host can press a button, and then 3 minutes later, you're ready to go to the next round. At DLC, the DLC experience, and this was a little bit of a shock to me, at least after the first round of the main stage that we were a part of, like the 60 minutes was up, and then we were sitting there for 25 minutes to a half an hour before we got pairings to then go to the table, and then they were going to hit start on the next 60 minutes. Like, it'll say 60-minute rounds, but that's how much time you have to play. And then there's everything in between. There's a reason for that. I mean, when you're managing a 2,000 plus field, there's a lot of phones that are trying to look on, the PlayHub app to refresh their page, and that can get crazy bandwidth problems, right? So with that, they were really prepared there is they had stands where they posted printed copies, and they need to not only have the pairings ready, but then they post the printed copies. They got to get that all ready before they can hit go and start the next round. So you will have time to do things in between rounds, even chat with your friends. Like that's what we did probably 90% of the time was just chat with each other, what we learned, what we saw, checking up. Hey, we're still having fun, right? This was a good experience, right? Yes. Okay, good. Glad we're here. So you will have more time than you think, especially in between rounds. Hopefully that eases a little bit of the stress that of where am I need to find my seat as soon as possible. Otherwise I'm playing a Sapphire deck and I'm hoping to get my round done type of feeling.
Yeah, Mac, to piggyback on that, one of the thoughts I had when I was trying to think through like what advice I would give is when you're planning side events or you're planning other events to go to, try not to double book yourself. And when you're planning these, get a lot about 75 minutes per round for each of the events. Even a side event that might only cap at 16 people, you're still going to have that time in between rounds because they're going through a decent amount of the same process and software as they are from the main event. And also as a side event, you're going to be not the priority if something comes up at the main event, or if you happen to transition at the same time as the main event, then you're going to be waiting a little bit longer. So just plan for about 75 minutes per round for whatever event you're in, whether it's the main event on Saturday and Sunday or any of the side events on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. When you're going through and planning out your schedule for the day, give yourself that extra buffer and don't double book yourself because it makes the rounds even longer if you're not actually able to participate in the event you signed up for, because then they have to spend extra time manually dropping people from each event after that event has gone through one round of play. So do your best when you're planning it out. Plan for about 75 minutes per round and don't double book yourself throughout the day, and use that when you're planning out. When I was going through logistically thinking through things, I was thinking, all right, 60-minute rounds, because it's 50 minutes of play, 10 minutes of transition. That'll be plenty, but really give yourself that 75-minute buffer so you're not trying to go back to back with multiple events and running into issues.
Another thing, and this is actually something that I haven't had a ton of experience doing up until a DLC, but was the process for submitting your deck list and then how you're also caring for your cards. So I can actually call back to my experience at DLC Milwaukee where, again, like triple check your list because you're going to submit it on the PlayHub. Just don't rush that. Once you hit submit, get that good, because you'd hate to have a round loss or a match loss or whatever because you fumbled and you chose the wrong Diablo card, right, when you were entering in the text or whatever, right? So make sure that is really, really clean. The other part to this is recommend doing this probably the night before, but when you're sleeving up your deck, if you're going to use new sleeves or whatever, really inspect the sleeves that you're putting on your cards. And ideally you're going to have 100. So you have 40 spare sleeves in case something happens to one of them, or you notice there's a little crease or just, and I know that Ryan and I were very, I think, anxious about this, of just we don't want to have a misunderstanding.
Can I jump in quick? Or 39 extra sleeves if you're running 61 cards like you did at your event this weekend. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or your 39 extras. So, and the reason this is important, right? That I bring this up. I had opened a brand new box of Dragon Shield sleeves, and they were like, there was this weird like line along the side of the card, and it just felt like, hey, I don't want to like risk this, so I had some other sleeves. And the other part that I think was really important to this is if you're going to be like sleeving up all of your cards, as you're taking the stack of the sleeves themselves, don't have it be like, okay, 4 consecutive Hades off the top, then like 4, like, because if you do it like that and there is some sort of like, I don't know, imperfection on like a set within the stack, it will be the same card if you do it that way. So like, ideally, you're kind of like, okay, the top card off the top stack of the sleeves is like this 1-drop character, and then the next card is like this random, like do it mixed order. You get everything sleeved up that way in a very kind of random order of the cards themselves. Shuffle them up, shuffle them again. I don't think I shuffled that well this last weekend because there was some stuff where I was like, wow, that's a lot of 4 and 5s and like nothing else. So, I think it's just important stuff. It's like you wouldn't want to have something like that cost you either a game, whether it be because you didn't shuffle well enough or because you got a ding on your sleeve and, you could have prevented it or whatever, right? So I think that's just another thing of just like getting all that stuff again so you don't have to worry about it when you just want to focus on playing the game and having fun.
Yeah, just a funny story on that. I mean, I remember Nathaniel and I in Milwaukee. Ryan was much more responsible and he was already in bed and getting his beauty rest before the event. But Nathaniel and I, being the night owls that we are, we were like sitting there. We had our deck laid out on the table and we were just like, hey, I entered it. We just flashed the phone like right in front of each other's face. Does my deck list look good? Okay, good. And then I'm pretty sure we checked again. Are you sure? Does the deck list look good before we hit submit? And that was after we had sleeved with fresh sleeves, to your point. Like, we were very much in the paranoia stage because it was midnight and we probably should have been in bed much earlier. But I remember that vividly, like me and you just sitting there being anxious about ensuring the sleeves were good. We had submitted everything correctly and we were good to go. So that is a core memory that I'll never forget when playing Lorcana. But the last thing I wanted to bring up, and then I'll let you guys take the last couple too. It's actually not on our list. I just thought of it, is golden retrievering is okay. Like, especially if you see people that you recognize, like Worlds participants. For the most part, like you just go up and say, hey, like we went up multiple times, introduced ourselves. Hey, really like your gameplay. I really like this deck idea that you had. And for the most part, at least I know for sure I never had a negative experience. But at the same time, know your limit. Like, these are really good players. And one specific example I have is after day 1, we did 8 rounds of Swiss. All of us were tired. And we were walking out of the building and we saw the world champ, DKP. He was sitting there and you could see he was visibly exhausted. We went up to him and said, hey, really enjoyed watching you. It's really fun. Congratulations on the world win. Can we have a quick picture? He was very generous. He said yes, but we didn't want to push it. Like, we didn't want to talk to him about specific gameplay. We're all exhausted. Get the quick picture and leave, especially if you're in a scenario like that. So, like, yes, you can go up and say hi. People love to chat about Lorcana. But also, please recognize your limits, because they're especially highly competitive players. They're there to win as opposed to us just there to enjoy the experience. So it just, I want people to understand that please don't be a burden on these people that are really trying to win, but it's no stress in saying hi either. People love it.
Yeah, Mac, I actually, that's a really good point, because there were actually 3 specific interactions that are pretty core to me, I guess, from that, in terms of like meeting higher profile Lorcana personalities. And one of them is, of course, DKP at the end of the day, where it's like, hey, like, read the room here, right? Like, and if he would have said, like, you know what, I'm not up for a picture, I'd be like, sounds good, like, it's totally fine. So nice to meet you, congrats again, off we go, right? He was very generous to offer to accept the request for a photo there really quick. But very different than on the front end of the event, right, where we're just waiting in line on Friday. and I got to just talk Frank Carson's ear off and just ask him tons of questions because the guy's a genius, right? Like that's like two very different kind of like formats, right? And where you're like meeting people, and both of those are two of the very highest players, but like how we're meeting them, where we're meeting them, different. I probably was a little bit of a burden to Frank Carson, if we're being honest. And then like another one, right, is like we got to talk to Kawa from Podcana, and he was just like incredibly insightful, like friendly to us, like was willing to answer any question we had. Like I think we probably could have chatted with him for like an hour and just asked him questions, and he was like more than happy to just like talk it out, right? Because I think he was already out of the tournament, right? Like he was just kind of watching, and it was also cool because I think it was like right after the 10-year-old kid beat DKP. So it was just like the buzz in the room was like really high. So that was really cool. But like, you know, based on where we were at, who the person was, the time of day, all that stuff mattered in terms of like how that interaction was going to go. So I feel very fortunate that we got to meet as many personalities as we did. The other big one probably would be JDZ. We got to chat with him for probably about 5 minutes, and that was, he was a really busy guy too, right? So like that was 5 minutes of his time is actually crazy that we got even that much. But as far as, I'll say my last one, and it goes just with like the lesson learned from even a set champs, right? If you have a bag that has room for your cards and a water bottle, I hope you also have a little bit of room for some snacks, because yes, you could go get some food at DLC Milwaukee, but there is something about just like being able to reach into your bag and getting some quick energy, right? Like this is your source of energy throughout the day. So not having to go find that, having some on you at all times, I think really important. And again, I think it just, all these things go back to, if you come prepared with all these little other things, you're never really stressing out. You're just focusing on playing the game and having fun with that, and then hopefully chatting with like really cool Lorcana people and your friends. So bring snacks. Ideally not something that like is going to upset your stomach. So like know that about yourself, right? Like if I eat something real spicy or something with some dairy, I'm not feeling good. You know, just be aware of that too. And like there's definitely probably better and worse stuff. I think protein is usually a good call. It certainly was for me. I felt like I was full when I had that, and I was like my brain was working the way it needed to, because again, you don't want that to cost your performance or make you feel icky, which this last weekend I didn't do enough of that, and I did feel kind of icky by the end of the set champs. So just bring some snacks as much as you can.
And kind of along the same line of things I may not think about to bring, but definitely should bring because it happened to me before, is have a backup pen. If you're doing pen and paper lore tracking, make sure you have a backup pen in case you break one or lose one or run out of ink in one because you made it to the miraculous end of a pen that no one ever makes it to. If that's going to be you, then make sure you have a backup pen at all times so you're able to quick transition. You don't have to go searching for one. You still have your lore count that's going to be accurate, and you're not depending on your opponent being the only one tracking things. So I highly encourage you to bring a backup pen if you're doing pen and paper lore tracking, which I would also encourage you to do so you can have as much information as possible to present to judges in the event of a judge call if something were to come up. So highly recommend doing pen and paper lore tracking and also having a backup pen just in case something happens with your primary pen. And with that, is there anything else that y'all wanted to chat about related to tips and tricks? Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Yeah, I just want to double down on that. I think at an event like this, I think it's particularly important that you do have a pen and paper, even if it's not your like preferred method. It is like the best way to track the lore totals for both players. And I say this because there are things where like lore could go up and down, right? Think about like Singing a Pirate's Life, right? Like a player would like lose lore, and like when you have a very clear like pen, cross out new number, if there were ever to be a dispute between you and the other player about like the lore totals that people are at, right? Because you know it's easy to miss every once in a while some of these things, right? It could be like a location trigger that like got a lore or whatever it is, right? Where there's a dispute between you and an opponent. If you have a pen and paper and you've been tracking it that way, and the other person has like a lore spinner, it just, if a judge comes there, right? Like it, I'm not saying that this is going to happen or this would happen this exact way, but it's usually going to, the evidence that you have with a pen and paper is going to be the best that you could provide in those situations. So again, being the most prepared you could be, it's usually best to have something like that when you're tracking lore. And again, I miss it all the time on like little stuff, right? Like where like I quest a basil to beef something else up, and so I can challenge with the extra 2 strength. You write that lore down, right? Like, it's just good habits to get into, and I think pen and paper is the best way to do it. If you have that with you, you usually be set in the case of any type of potential dispute.
Yeah, great point on that, especially for tracking, because you don't want any discrepancies and have any weird, funky judge calls, to your point. But with that, on the heels of this episode, last week we talked a lot about our 2025 year-end review. Well, turns out we're in a new year. It is now 2026. So we wanted to, as our fun last topic for this episode, talk about resolutions or goals. I don't know if it could be either specific to Lorcana or just goals in general about life. So who wants to go first? What kind of New Year's resolutions or goals do you have coming into the new year?
First and foremost, just want to wish all of our listeners a happy new year. We made it to 2026. Congratulations. I know it's maybe a week late, but hey, we're here. One of my resolutions or goals is to do a little bit better job of on a kind of consistently keeping the house clean rather than all at once trying to clean the house before a major event or something like that. So we're just going to, periodically or throughout the week, just do one little thing a day that's a little bit extra for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that'll help try to, ease the burden of when we're having guests over, having family over, of having to do this major deep clean of certain areas of the house. Lorcana related, I want to branch out into different ink color combinations. For the last year, I've been pretty much primarily on Amethyst Sapphire, and so I did a little bit of Sapphire Steel dabbling. I did some Amber Steel dabbling, but just trying to branch out a little bit, even continue branching out and challenging myself set by set, and evaluating cards as they come out, making sure that I'm identifying high quality cards and playing those, and trying to get a little bit more ahead of the curve with each set that does come out, and also not knocking myself for net decking, because that's still a very good way to find great decks and then just tweak them with what you see in your local meta, tweak them with what you see when you're playtesting with your friends. The friend techs are real and the friend techs are savage, and that's how we have some fun with this game too. I will say that I'm excited for this year with y'all. I'm excited for this year with my family. Excited for this year of Lorcana. Otherwise, just living life and making the most of the time that we have with our little ones while they're still little.
I can go next. I think so. On the personal level, I'd like to do a little bit more working out this year. I've got some adjustable weights as well as a cycling, like a bike that's like in place. When you're in Minnesota, right, you need to find a way to get some of that aerobic work every once in a while, and it's really hard to do that sometimes outside. Having an indoor bike, huge win. Getting on that a little more, as well as doing some of that strength training. I think it's a good way to stay healthy. And then also a really fun thing for this year is both my son and I are going to be taking piano lessons. So I want to take that goal of like being more proficient with that alongside one of my little ones. Super excited for that. From a Lorcana perspective, there's really two. One of them is I would love to make it to another large event, preferably a DLC. So if we can make Indie happen, gentlemen, that would be tremendous. That's very much circled on my calendar for like, how do we make this a reality? And can we even get maybe one more with us, like a Connor or an Evan or both? Would be amazing. So as we're talking through like our DLC experience, like that was such a banner experience. Really, really want to get to another one, and maybe it's a season 3 DLC later in the year too, right? Like that would be absolutely incredible. I hope we can make it work. The other part, I think, on Ryan's note about like playing different ink combinations, I've certainly branched out more since set 8, in terms of like what I've been running, right? Like being a purple steel stand for much of the last year, trying some other things like Blurple this past weekend. It was fun, but just being more creative with deck building. I think like having like a pet deck, I think is really fun. And I think part of what has been inspiring to me is one, seeing Mack, how you have sort of been changing a little bit about like, what's this deck look like? What am I changing? What am I not liking? And then watching Christian's challenge, with his sealed challenge, right? Like just, I don't know that I would necessarily be able to do that quite the same way that he could, but just like being okay with this maybe not being like the best it could possibly be, right? Like it's a pet deck for a reason. Maybe it's got some cool synergies. Maybe it could surprise people at like a fun, like local thing. Maybe bring it to a set chance, maybe not. But just like having, like feeling the courage to like build something of your own creation in some capacity. Maybe you steal some ideas here and there from some other deck builders. But just having something that maybe is true to you in some way, or it's got some fun synergies that you like. I'm really trying to be better about that in 2026.
That's awesome. My New Year's resolution, non-Lorcana related, I'm trying to expand my carpenter skills. I know throughout the first, month or two of this podcast, I, in detail, let everyone know about my flooring adventures. So if you remember those, if you're the OGs, you remember my flooring adventures and how my wife and I put in new floors. We are now about to start a bathroom remodel, and my wife's godfather is a licensed carpenter, so he's the one doing it, but he made sure that I will be the one primarily assisting him. So I'm going to be learning a lot about plumbing and electrical and how to put a bathroom together. As originally daunting as that seemed, I'm actually very excited to learn a lot of these skills on just how to take care of a house better, so I'm not reliant on just throwing money at people to have other people do it. I want to get better at those things. So I'm very much excited about that, as well as expanding. My wife and I have some plans to expand our backyard area to hopefully host more people. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. You guys need to bring your families over. And we're planning to put a fire pit in and having a fun time in the backyard and expanding our garden too. So we have a lot of things planned over the course of this next year. Lorcana related, I'm very much in alignment with expanding my playability in other decks. I do want to make that banner event for sure. Indie is something that I have circled on my calendar and hoping to bridge that conversation soon to see if that's something that we can make work. Not only for us, to your point, but it is Midwest, and we've been very fortunate with the DLC locations this season. So I want to take advantage of that while we do have them, because in knowing how frustrated other parts of the country and North America were that almost everything is centralized in the country here, I am predicting that season 3 will not have any Midwestern location, and it'll be more coast or south. So let's take advantage of it while it's here. But really the big thing that I've enjoyed over the course of the last couple months is a lot of these like team events, team sealed, team draft, team core constructed, like trying to get back to my roots and being a part of competitive teams, and then doing that and trying to construct a deck together and seeing what makes the best outcome. I'm hoping we see more of those, and if we do see more of those, especially locally, like I want to participate in as many of those as I can, because that's just another fun event, a different way of thinking about the game. A new iteration of this fun game that I want to continue to participate in. And my long-term goal, I don't know if it'll happen this year, so audience, sorry. I know I've alluded to you guys kind of off pod, but like I really want to host our own DuckTale Dads tourney locally. And whether or not that happens this year, at least start planning for it, because I don't see myself going anywhere with this game. I'm staying put and playing this game, at least for the foreseeable future. So, and hosting that event, letting Nathaniel, Golden Retriever, his way to victory, I think that'll be really fun. And getting a taste of that during the Minnesota 2nd anniversary event, I really very much enjoyed that, and I want to be a part of hosting an event like that. So that's kind of my long-term goal, and hopefully it's something we can work together throughout the duration of this year. Who knows? But with that, thank you, gentlemen. This was our first episode of 2026. Very excited for DLC Richmond and throughout more weekends of this Whispers Set Championship season. But without further ado, gentlemen, let's get the duck out of here.